nice to have you. We had a chance to have a 10 or 15-minute conversation beforehand, and I thought reading about Airwallex was interesting. Then I met you, and then I found it even more interesting. You're well known in this community, but for those that are probably coming to Dubai FinTech for the first time, I was asking you the question behind the scenes: what differentiates a payment company that makes it a game changer in your view? If you're making an elevator pitch of a scale-up company, what do you offer that nobody else does, do you think?
I think Airwallex offers a fully integrated payments and financial solution to enable businesses to operate globally, to grow their business globally. As a small business owner myself, over a decade ago, we've experienced first time how difficult it is to managing payments globally, interacting with the SWIFT system, which is built in the 1970s, and the corresponding banking system, and the delays, the high fees, and the excessive compliance around many correspondent banking in the middle. Airwallex built our own proprietary payment system to connecting all the real-time payment systems which are innovated in the last decade. For example, fast payment in the UK, SEPA Instant in Europe, or FPS in Hong Kong, MPP in Australia, now FedNow just released in the US. So Airwallex built a full cloud-native payment network that integrated with all the local RDPs around the world, so that our customers can leveraging this infrastructure to managing payments globally. And later on, that we extended our payment network to banking and finance, so that modern businesses that do both payments and finance online and managing all the expenses around the world, that can leveraging this single platform to operate the business without any third parties involved.
It's interesting because you grew up in Melbourne. You got into the coffee business, which created on specialty coffee, a dependence on imports and acquiring really quality beans. But that was the spark for your business, right? You were just kind of frustrated by the process of importing product and the lack of ease in the system. Is that what prompted Airwallex as a creator?
Yeah, we over a decade ago, we wanted to build like a blue bottle equivalent in Australia and Asia. We importing beans from Brazil and Indonesia and Kenya. And we're importing packages from China. We need to make international payment using traditional banks, Western Union, using the traditional SWIFT or correspondent banking system. For example, if I need to make a payment from Australia, from Melbourne to Brazil, that a smaller bank in Brazil, which they don't have a bilateral relationship, that need to go through maybe CBA, maybe Bank of America or Citibank or JP Morgan. So it's multiple, and later on that involve like Itaú, who's the largest bank in Brazil, so that it goes through multiple correspondent in the middle, and which are charging excessive fees and also slow down the speed of the payment. With Airwallex payment network now penetrated more than 150 countries, we're processing close to $200 billion this year. Over 90% those payments are through our own network. Over about 88% of those payments are close to real time, and more than 70% of those payments are real time. So when you're sending a payment from Australia to Brazil, it will rob the bank account in a couple of seconds, leveraging the real time payment system in Brazil called PIX.
Interesting. I was emerging markets editor for CNN for 10 years, and we had a discussion about how would I describe Airwallex. You said your bases are around the world in the developed world, and you're reaching out as the next wave of growth to the high growth markets of the world. So how do you use those bases in Far East Asia and in Europe, Israel, I'll talk to you about Dubai in a second, and in the United States to span out? Where is your growth going to come from in the future, do you say?
Airwallex was founded in Melbourne, Australia in 2015. So the domestic market in Australia is not huge for global payments, so that we have to very quickly expand it to Hong Kong, Singapore, later on China, Japan, Malaysia. Then about a couple of years ago, we launched in UK, Europe, as well as North America, so US and Canada. We bought a company in Mexico last year, and then we applying licenses in sort of UAE, in Saudi, and Brazil at the moment, which we define as high growth market. We're also looking at acquisition in Indonesia, Vietnam. We also define as high growth market. So as the geopolitical tension between China and US getting more intense in the last 4 or 5 years, we see a trend of reglobalization. So supply chain proactively shifting away from China to countries like Latin America, like especially Mexico, in Southeast Asia, especially Vietnam, Indonesia, and to a certain extent in the Middle East as well. So we're looking at how do we set up infrastructure to facilitating the next phase of growth of the company, also facilitating this new world order in the sort of reglobalization phase of the economy.
Is that for real though, reglobalization? Do you see it in the, I mean, you're probably as close to it as anybody else is, right? Because you can see the transactions. Is there a new world order in terms of flows and what that means? Because you're planning your business around it. It's fascinating. Yeah,
we see a pretty dramatic sort of shift in terms of payment volume, diversify from China to the rest of the world. And that kind of trend has been significantly accelerated from Q1 last year.
That's quite substantial. It was interesting. I was recently in Rotterdam, and there was a CEO of a Japanese company who said that they're seeing a lot of flows into Japan as a result of what you're talking about. So the larger tech companies are starting to use Tokyo as a base, which is not a cheap base, as you know.
I'm not sure that's true because Japanese yen has been the weakest in the last decade, and Japan is, from a economy standpoint and then tourist standpoint has been, pretty solid.
I know.
And then people just see that's kind of a good investment opportunity. I mean, I was in Tokyo literally right before this for 2 weeks, and the real estate market is doing well, and the economy is pretty strong. So I think, from what I heard from the ministers in Japan, actually they feel it's mainly because the Japanese yen is weakening. That's why there's a lot of inflow of capital, and also the regulation on foreign investment is actually quite friendly.
Yeah, no, but it's also a kind of a safe harbor if you want to be in Far East Asia, right? That was my point.
Yeah, there's no capital control in that market compared to some of the other market, but so does Singapore and Hong Kong. So I'm not economic, so I'm not sure what ultimately impacting the trade flows, but I feel it's probably not part of the reglobalization.
No, very interesting. What are the implications for reglobalization and on your business then? How much has it changed what your strategy was, say, 3 or 4 years ago?
Airwallex started as a B2B payments company. Then we see, a few catalysts that are driving the growth of Airwallex in the last decade. I think the first catalyst is we called globalization or e-commerce, as the nature of, a digital economy is borderless. When a business kind of started innovating in the local market, and when they mature in the local market, they're looking at economic opportunities beyond the current border. And as a digital or technology business, it's very natural for them to go beyond their borders. And that been the catalyst that driving the initial product market fit of Airwallex, and then still today. The geopolitical tension hasn't impacted the overall trade flow. It just have been shifted from one part of the world to another, and then just getting more diversified. And the second catalyst is really the impact of COVID. We see a lot of workforce being globally distributed, and the nature of a distributed workforce will make the company to distributing the expenses. If you're looking at from revenue of a company and also expenses of a company, you have corporate expenses, you have employee expenses, you have payroll. Around corporate expenses, mainly you have different vendors. You paying vendors globally, whether through a card or through a bank transfer. You have employee expenses on whether it's sort of payroll, or you have travel, entertainment, and all this stuff get paid through reimbursement software. Mm-hmm. Then you have the whole procurement stuff as well. So I think all these globalized, I guess, workforce have made most of the modern businesses today are globally native. And then most of the companies are getting created and set up today, especially the technology companies, are global first. And we're looking at, from an Airwallex standpoint, we want to be the single platform to enable these global first modern businesses to expand beyond the borders to go after these borderless economic opportunities.
Good. You're having a leadership meeting here, which I thought was interesting. You linked it to Dubai FinTech. The reason I brought it up, A, I want to get your impressions, but B, I think in your company, as a journalist, we'd go out and get a sense of a market. You said you want your people to get a sense of the location because you're looking to set up here, but also to test the payment systems and the rest. What are the impressions you're getting so far?
We are just a bunch of payment nerds, and we try to launch Japan from like a year ago, and we did our last leadership offsite in Kyoto in Japan. That you can experience both the Zen kind of culture in Kyoto and as well sort of experience to be honest, a bit outdated payment system in Japan, which we see a massive opportunity there. And I think for a payment company to succeed at that, I want our leadership team to actually go there to understand the culture, understand how you're interacting with the merchant, how you paying the merchant, how merchants are paying others. And that to kind of be on the ground and experience that firsthand just give you a lot of intuition when you're launching the market. And we see a lot of growth in the Middle East, especially Israel, UAE, and Saudi. And we launched Israel about 12 months ago. And with only less than 10 people there, we're able to growing our volume from zero to more than $500 million in such a short period of time. This is one of the fastest growing market we have ever seen.
So it's about 10% of your revenues, then, right, or no?
It's probably 2.5% our global.
2.5.
Yeah,
okay.
we're processing close to $100 billion now, and we're probably gonna process close to $200 billion by end of the year. But it's still, from zero to $500 million transaction volume in such short period of time is still impressive. And we right now we are applying regulatory approval in UAE and subsequently Saudi, and hopefully we're able to launch in UAE in the next sort of 6 to 12 months, and replicating the success we had in the Israel.
It's interesting. You use this, I think geographically they have a huge advantage, right, as a bridge between East and West and even North and South. What is Dubai as a stepping stone into the African market, for example? What do you see this leading to?
We started the business in Asia Pacific and facilitating a lot of B2B flows, and as the nature of those flows, we see a lot of opportunity paying into supply chains in China and Southeast Asia. I think we see a lot of opportunity of this trade flow shifting to this region, and also because of the geopolitical tension. A lot of the China internet companies, when they expanding globally, like TikTok Shop or Temu or Shein, they naturally come to this region, and then so far they have been doing super well, and we wanted to able to basically leveraging this trend and facilitating more transactions and more opportunities in between this region and Asia as well. So we're looking at the two benefits to the region when Airwallex succeeded here. The number one benefit is we're able to take global businesses to come to this region to help them to servicing better for both businesses and consumers in this side of the world. And number two, we're able to help local startup and technology companies to go beyond this region and succeed elsewhere with the powerful infrastructure we built in the last decade in North America and Asia Pacific and Europe. So that's, I would say that the two sides of the opportunity that we see here.
Good, the new Silk Roads, right, or the historical Silk Roads that are being rebuilt today. It's quite interesting if you look from the UAE, east. They started in China, went to India, Southeast Asia. But you said something in our pre-meeting that the construction companies of China and Far East Asia are doing a lot of business here. Does that create an opportunity for Airwallex and then the medium-sized or SMEs that are around these major construction companies?
Yes, I think the major opportunity we see are in construction. Construction procurement have a lot of supply and demands, a lot of payments around that, and we see a lot of interesting use cases in autonomous driving and EV. Because of the restriction, of some of the trade wars, a lot of the Chinese internet companies choose to expand it to this region first as a testing ground. So they bring the latest technology, even prior to some of the US companies to this region, and then taking some of the EV cars to this region as well. And when they are able to succeed, and we hopefully able to facilitating that both of the in-car and on-the-ground transactions of all these charging stations, etc.
Good. You have, what, 15 people on your leadership team, am I correct?
Yeah, sort of around that number.
Around that number. How many people do you have in the company now?
We have over 1,500 people
1,500.
Globally.
So let's fast forward. I think this crowd would be very interested to know, you're a scale-up company now because you have weight. Do you plan to go public eventually? Are you looking at markets? How big is this company going to be over time? I was saying to you, you've tackled the developed economies of the world. You could park it there and say, I can grow with that base, but you see the high growth markets and a lot of potential here. What are the plans?
John, if you're looking at the size of Airwallex, we're doing $500 million in revenue this year and still growing 100% year on year. And we're not even having 1% market share that we try to sort of challenging on, and far from even reaching any sort of tipping point of the industry that we are in. We see tremendous amount of opportunities and driving by the catalysts that were laid out. I talk about the globalized sort of workforce and the globalization of e-commerce and trade, but what I haven't talked about is also we see a trend of embedded finance that modern platform businesses like Uber or Goat or any other larger sort of e-commerce and trade businesses now try to monetizing the ecosystem, leveraging infrastructure like Airwallex to monetize that customer. So that's another sort of catalyst driving the growth. So then just on that embedded finance market alone, we see hundreds of billions of revenue opportunity out there. So again, Airwallex is only a 10-year-old company, but we see there's a trend for a dozen fintech to build 100 billion businesses in the next decade and beyond. And hopefully with technology, with the infrastructure we have built early on, and with the ambition and the capital behind us, and we're able to be one of those winners ultimately.
Good. I find this a fascinating discussion, actually. Are you going to build your stack out then? I was asking you about tax. So right now you make facilitation very easy. Will you be offering that as a product line to manage the tax transactions for companies around the world?
Yeah, so now we have two product lines, and number one is we call financial operating system. The other one is we call embedded finance. Financial operating system, the vision is to, if you think about iOS as the operating system for people interacting with your mobile, then you Apple build the core apps and allow other developers to deploy apps into that operating system as well. Our vision is we build a financial infrastructure, we build a regulatory layer around the world and getting regulated. So far we're already regulated in more than 60 markets, and we continue to expand that regulatory infrastructure. Then we build a core apps, which is the business account, which is essentially global banking. We build Spend. You can do all the bill pay, procurement, reimbursement, employee expenses, etc. That's all kind of the spend category. And we build payments, which is around account receivable, how you're receiving money, both online and offline. And we also build our treasury product, which allow company to invest in the cash into money market fund, etc. So that sort of four core, product category. You can think about these four product categories are apps in our financial operating system. And later on that we're going to open up our financial operating system to allow third-party startups and developers to build on top of that, and tax could be a good fit to kind of solving the problems in our ecosystem to help us to servicing our customers around the world together.
Yeah, it's very interesting. So you have growth geographically, but then your product line expands. I was going to ask you something that just popped into my mind, if you don't mind. There's some, concerns that if you look at the dominance of the major players in technology, the Google or Apple or et cetera, they become dominant financial players over time. I think they're working to see how much they could, like an Alipay, for example. Is that a benefit for Airwallex, or do I have it right, that you could have almost like the oligarchs of finance that challenge the major banks around the world?
I think because financial service industry is highly regulated, and the market we are tackling in is a global market,
yes.
right? So you don't deal with one regulator, you deal with
multiple
regulators in multiple regions, and try to innovating in this very complicated and segmented landscape. I think there will be a dominant player in Pacific market and Pacific region, but it's very hard. I couldn't imagine a world like one or two players dominating the world finance. I think, as I said before, I think the revenue or the landscape that used to be dominated by tens of thousands of banks in the last 50, even 100 years,
yes.
Going to be further consolidated by maybe a dozen or more fintech players, and together with banks. So there's going to be partnership, there's going to be innovative things together, but the entire ecosystem will evolve from a domination by banks to kind of I guess a mixed play of both banks and fintech in the next sort of decade and maybe 20 years, because we all building product in a highly regulated environment, so it's not going to be as fast as the like of TikTok or Facebook or Instagram. But the great thing is when we succeeded laying the foundation, the infrastructure, there's going to be millions of businesses around the world benefiting from the success we have, and we're able to enable those businesses to become truly global first, global native businesses, and go after borderless economic opportunities.
We only have a few minutes left. I'd love to get your mind to open up to how do you spot talent in a fast-growing company? What type of person that belongs into an Airwallex, like the DNA? Is it hard to find the global first type of people that can ride on a very accelerated journey?
John, I look at it this way. We like to hire inexperienced people.
What type of people? Sorry.
Inexperienced people.
Inexperienced.
Yeah. So, we see people have never worked in banking and financial services a huge benefit. Especially people from a STEAM background and from an engineering background, able to thinking everything from first principle, solving problems with first principle. And obviously we're operating in a highly regulated environment. We also like to hire, like highly kind of capable legal and compliance individual that are able to work with engineers and understand what the customer need, but also building product services compliant with regulation. So that's kind of probably the two type of people we love to employ. And as we expanding into this region, we love to getting people to join our business.
Interesting. Did you ever think your business would scale like this? I mean, you went from importing coffee beans and wanted to do specialty coffee in a coffee capital of the world like Melbourne, to sitting here in 2024 and saying there's growth bloody everywhere for the product you created. Did you ever think it'd get to that scale?
Yeah, so I started my career in algorithmic trading and half percent trading in UK and Australia, and technology. I've been writing code, for over a decade before, I think before I even started the coffee business. And technology is always a passion, and I always wanted to build things with technology, changing the world, and then creating positive impact. I think I'm glad that I'm able to sitting here today, share our journey, because that when we succeeded, there's going to be millions of businesses around the world benefiting from the technology we created. I would, to be honest, I've never thought about how big of a business we can build, a decade ago. At that time, all we have is a passion for technology and passion to creating impact. I'm glad that we have further along the journey. I wouldn't say we succeeded yet, but hopefully, in 20 years, when we're looking back, there's millions of businesses around the world are benefiting from the infrastructure and technology we have layered in the last 30 years.
Good. Final question in 30 seconds. Does Airwallex become a brand that people know in the market eventually? Like, how do you build your customer base? Is it on reputation alone?
I think if you think about, Shopify is a very famous worldwide brand. They're a single platform to help merchants to sell globally. Not only help them to build website, but also help them with logistics, with marketing, with the whole ecosystem behind that to enable a merchant to grow their business. Airwallex want to be a brand to be known to connecting the entrepreneurs, the business builders, the creators of the world to enable them to grow beyond borders, to connect them with borderless opportunities in every corner of the world, and that's how we want an Airwallex brand to be remembered. Okay.
What a pleasure to talk to you. What a mind. He says, oh, I'm not that bright, blah, blah, blah. It was great to have you, and I appreciate your support and being open about what the road was and where the road is going. Jack Zhang, can we give him a nice round of applause? Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Zhang.
Yeah.
Thanks for the audience.